Hey everybody, welcome back. I am Cass with College of Lore.
I am tired. I'm Penitent with College of Lore.
Yeah, me too, damn. Alright, hey guys, today we're going to talk about stuff. Whoa, no way. It's almost like that's what we do on this YouTube channel.
Yeah, today we're talking about Rule of Cool.
Yep, I love it. That's it, that's the whole video, bye! Just kidding.
So what is Rule of Cool?
It is... I mean, what it boils down to is, this is a thing that doesn't technically work rules as written, but your DM lets you do it because it's cool as fuck.
Yeah,
It is exactly that. It is. This doesn't work in the official rules, but it is so cool that you can break a rule for it.
yeah. So it kind of ties into Rule Zero, which is you control the rules, you make up the rules in D and
Yes.
D. There are plenty of rules for D&D, but if you don't want to, if you don't vibe with those rules,
You don't have to use them.
yeah.
You can tweak them or change them or entirely remove them at your discretion.
If you think falling damage would be a different dice type, you can change that. If you think that
Falling damage shouldn't exist. You can change that. You can take it out. I don't know why you would.
What are some examples of Rule of Cool that we've maybe used or seen used?
I mean, technically, as written, the entire demigod thing is rule of cool. Like, I
Yeah.
know it's homebrew, but it is also entirely rule of cool, and it varying the challenge for it varying by difficulty is technically rule of cool.
Yeah, for those of you that haven't seen our actual play, and in a lot of other things we talked about, we have demigod PCs.
Yes. Who basically have clerics like level 10 divine intervention ability like all the time.
Yeah.
Uh limited more narratively than mechanically.
Something like changing the weather might be 50, something like resurrection.
Might be one or might not even be possible depending on the circumstances.
Yeah, 100%.
On a percentile roll too, I should clarify. It's not like a 1 on a d20 or whatever, no. It's a 1 on a percentile roll, and sometimes it's even harder.
Yeah. Which is interesting.
Yes.
I think about the stake story a lot, too.
Yes.
That's an example of Rule of Cool.
We haven't told that one on the channel yet.
I don't believe we have at least.
We should put it in a game tale at some point, but that's what I mean, on a game tale.
Yeah.
But what that boiled down to is, technically, staking Strahd has no mechanical benefit.
Yeah.
I believe there are things written about how if you stake a vampire while they're in their coffin, it will paralyze them until the stake is removed, blah 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 blah. Rules as written. And in one of our games, just to make a long, complicated story short, a PC snuck up on Strahd and staked him when he was about to, like, TPK the party. And this rules as written would have done nothing or like a d4 of piercing damage or whatever as like an improvised weapon. Rule of Cool changed that entirely, and basically, Rule of Cool, we decided what that would do would be Strahd turns back into mist and has to flee the scene to recover from the stake. Because it was so well timed and so well executed. And even though rules as written, what they did would do nothing, I, as a DM, made the call that, okay, that was a cool as hell plan, I'm gonna give you something for it. And there are a lot of good moments, not just in games between you and myself, but in lots of games with a lot of people. I often think, when thinking about Rule of Cool as well, about one of the things we did, where when I was DMing, and I think we talked a little bit about this, actually, in the DMing bit of the Academy, the thing with the dogs in the Death House.
Yeah.
Which was also Curse of Strahd, because you and I have played Curse of Strahd numerous times, in lots of different ways. But, rules as written, and module as written, there is absolutely nothing to gain from interacting with the wolf, like, statue, taxidermied wolves, in, like, the first living room of the Death House. Like, you don't get anything from doing anything with that, but one of the characters was an animal lover and a creature lover, and a person lover and just a lover. She loved everything. And she petted the dogs on their heads and did a little hold her hand up like a paw in the same pose that they were holding their paws up. And I said, you know what, screw it. That unlocks something in the room, like a little. It wasn't a mechanical bonus. It wasn't something huge, but it unlocked a little side area for them that they wouldn't have been able to get to otherwise, because you can just do that. And that's a very minor rule of cool, but it is still, if your players are doing something interesting to interact with the world, especially in a dramatic, dynamic moment, you should give them something for it. I personally believe rule of cool is one of the most important tools a DM can and should use, and anyone who disagrees with me, I just fundamentally don't agree with you.
You've got to engage with your players on a lot of this.
Yes.
There are some people that are opponents of this, some people that think...
And some people think D&D should be played as written with no exceptions.
Yeah, some people think Raw is God. There aren't a lot of RPGs like that. I know, obviously, Matt Mercer has made several changes to Critical Role.
Yes. And homebrewed his own stuff.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff is different in Dimension 20.
Yes.
And various other things like that.
And fundamentally, I think what people... Like, if that's how your whole group wants to play, that's fine. You can play it that way. You can be min-maxy, or you can be rules as written focused, or whatever interests you. But that's not how the source book says it has to be.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, if you're doing that, you are going against what the source book says, which is breaking the rules is fine. If you want to say, no breaking the rules at my table because I'm the DM and I decide how the rules work, and in my game the rules work only as written, that's fine. But understand that is your table, and as the book says, rule of cool is fine and encouraged.
Rule 0 exists for a reason.
Yeah.
There's a whole system that's based on the rule of cool.
Yes.
Which I talk about in a top 10 coming up here this week. I think it's an important thing. I think that some opponents have brought up the point that it needs a spectrum. What are your thoughts on that?
So, a spectrum for rule of cool, I mean, I kind of get it. Like, there are some things that might be excessive, and there are some things that, there's a degree of give that you have as a DM and as a player. And this game, D&D and really RPGs in general, are kind of a tug of war. Where the DM gives you something and gives you some slack, and the players are expected to pick it up and pull on it, and then they're expected to, with their actions, give the DM some slack to pull back. And it's a back and forth. Maybe tug of war is the wrong metaphor, but there's a back and forth, there's a give and take. And players doing something outlandish that would never work shouldn't win them everything, just like, in my opinion, a d20 check should not be the player gets everything they want. It should be the best possible outcome, and there are plenty of people who disagree with me on that too, and you're wrong, no offense. But I don't think anything a player does should have some kind of impact. Positive, negative, overall it doesn't matter, but even just a moment of, oh hey, that was a kind of cool Easter egg in the story, like with the dogs. Like, I understand that there's a spectrum of, like, you can only go so far with rule of cool.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think that depends on your table. And I think if you're the kind of person who says, rule of cool will get you this far but no farther, again, that's your table. I don't think any one table should dictate how D&D is played. I actually don't think any 100 tables should dictate how D&D is played. There's a great deal of people who don't play D&D the way I play it at all, and that's great. I would never play it that way, but I'm not going to stop them from doing it, and by that token, they have the right to stop me from playing how I want.
100%.
So, rule of cool is a spectrum. The cooler something is, the more lenience you can give it, and if players keep trying to exploit that, then maybe you need to have a talk with them about, hey, let's try to keep the focus of this on the actual game and not on crazy stuff that may or may not work. And if you feel like your players are trying to find a way to exploit the rule of cool, you can talk to them about that. But the point of it is to make it more interesting and engaging and more likely for players to get creative and have extra fun. And I see absolutely no harm and a ton of gain in giving players the opportunity to have more fun.
Yeah, I think that is... Rule of cool is for fun. And if you're not at the table to have fun, why are you at the table at all?
Like, to some people, fun is making crazy broken builds and exploiting all sorts of things in the game, exploiting loopholes, and for some people, rules as written is part of that, for some people, rules as intended is part of that, and there's all these things that technically work rules as written, but they don't actually work rules as intended, and that's rule of cool too, to a degree. There are plenty of people who are like, I will only ever use raw. I will only ever work with what the book explicitly gives me, and then they will talk about, like, peasant railguns and shit. Like, okay, that sort of vaguely works in a way, but it doesn't really work.
People want to enforce rules as written and also enforce real-world physics.
Yeah. And that's not the point. You're combining two totally different things.
And then also break real-world physics by jamming a bunch of actions into...
Yeah. And that's not how it works.
Yeah.
You can't combine these two things because they're designed not to work in the same setting.
Well, yeah, it's
a fantasy world. It doesn't work like real life.
And Rule of Cool comes down to agency in some way, too. If you have a player... example. If you have a player who plays a trans character...
Yeah.
If Rule of Cool to them is they had access to some form of polymorph to be entirely...
Yeah.
Their ideal self, that's fine. If Rule of Cool to them is that they are ongoing a physical, medical transition...
Yeah.
That's also...
You can do whatever you want. But that's exactly the point of Rule of Cool, is you can do whatever you want. And I think there are... The people who oppose Rule of Cool because they feel like it adds too much confusion and complication to a game that has very clear outline rules.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like people who don't like Rule of Cool want things to be played the way they're written to be played. The thing that I feel like a lot of those people miss is that D&D, by sourcebook, by written definition, is designed to be played however you want it to be played. With however many rule modifications you feel like putting in, which is also, and I'm not going to talk about this a ton, partly because I don't want to get flamed in the comments, and partly because it's not the topic of the video, but that is also why I disagree with people who say you should always use another system if there's any system that fits remotely better than 5e. D&D is meant to be played with however many modifications to rules, to functionality, whatever you want to stack on top of it. Maybe that makes it harder in some ways, or it's more convenient in another way, but that doesn't mean that's how it has to be done.
I review RPG systems for work. I know, no exaggeration, hundreds of RPG systems and how they work.
And you would still usually rather do things in 5e.
I mean, it's not that I would necessarily rather do things in 5e, but it's that I would advocate that if that's how you want to go, go for it.
Yeah, it's fine.
I think in an ideal world, I'd have a game of D&D 5e, I'd have a game of Pathfinder, I'd have a game of
Burning
Wheel, I'd have a game of, like, some PBTA game going on.
Kind of all in conjunction with each other.
Yeah, but fundamentally, like, if you don't always want to learn a new system, I know a bunch of systems I don't want to learn a new system all the time.
You don't want to have to pick up a new rulebook and even refresh yourself, much less learn it, for one game. That might not even pan out all.
The amount of games that I've started that haven't made it past Session 2, Session 3...
Admittedly, that's because we get distracted a lot.
But, like, 5e, that's fine. If I was relearning, like, 10 Candles to do that...
We're gonna have to review that one sometime. I love the concept of that one.
I love 10 Candles, but that's not this video.
That's not this video. Sorry.
I think that...
It would be a pain in the ass to learn a new system for a game that went 5 sessions at most.
Yeah.
And not everyone works that way. And plenty of people have long-term sessions planned, but also, like... If you're gonna commit to that, you gotta commit to it, It's a commitment. It is a big commitment, especially if you are teaching a bunch of new players who do not know what they are doing.
I love other systems, but if you want to play a sci-fi game,
and you want to do it in 5e just because it's easy for you to... You already know it.
You pull out Starfinder and your group's eyes glaze over.
Yeah.
It's okay to just...
say, alright, we're gonna go look on the D&D Homebrew Wikipedia, or whatever it's called. I don't remember what it's called. We're gonna go look on that, and we're gonna find, like, Halo-inspired plasma weapons, and we're gonna put those in the game. You can do that.
For that is both DM's Guild and Unearthed Arcana subreddit.
Yes.
Check it out. One last thing I want to briefly touch on is Rule of Cool doesn't just start in Session 1, it actually starts in Session 0.
Yes.
I understand, as a DM, you've built up your world to be how you want it. You've built this perfect world in your mind.
But it's not just yours.
Yeah, it's...
The second you invite other people to play in it, it is no longer just your world.
Write a book. If
Write a
that's
book.
how it's
If what you want is your world exactly the way you've written it, exactly the way you have planned it for years on end, D&D is not the way to engage with that world anymore.
Say someone makes a character and they're like, so my concept was that, like, his father was a high-ranking member of the Assassin's Guild.
Yeah.
And you cut that player off and you're like, well, no, my world doesn't have any Assassin's Guild anywhere in it.
You know, put it in!
Yeah, like...
Like, at that point, you're just... You know, if that's a rule that you want to have, you need to make 100% sure that players know, like, okay, these are the things that are hard limits, these are the things that my world will not have in them and will not touch, and please don't make a character concept based on this. And by that token, if you don't communicate that to them, and you just say, alright, here, you've built this whole character, that's super cool, fuck you, you can't play it because I don't have that in my world, you either make room for it, or you tell them beforehand.
Reminds me of one DM I heard of that didn't allow spellcasters in their world.
That seems like it kind of... Man, you know, for all I say about just use 5e, what? That defeats the whole entire purpose.
They seem
For all I say, you know, you can use 5e for anything. Why would you use 5e for something with no spellcasters?
Yeah, and
why?
Let your players do what they want. I've heard a lot of bad DM stories because I research for game tales all the time. I heard one DM who wouldn't let players play non-humans.
Yep.
Wouldn't let players play outside their physical gender, or physical race, or age category.
So, don't do that. Do not do that. The whole point of this game is it's a fantasy game.
Yeah.
You get to live out whatever you think would be cool for you, and if that's staking Strahd in a moment of desperation and trying your best to make him escape, your DM should work with that.
And if that's saying, hey, you know, I've been a man in real life for 23 years.
Time to try something else.
I'm gonna be a teenage girl in this game.
Yeah. I'm gonna be an elderly woman in this game. Yeah. You can do that too.
I've heard of, you know, like a straight couple.
Yeah.
That every character they've made together, they always make characters in love. Every character they've made for the last 20 years has been a lesbian couple.
And good for them. Hope this doesn't awaken anything in that guy. Wonder if it ever did. Hope that doesn't come back to bite him later, is all I'll say about that. But yeah, you can... It's fine. The whole point of D&D and most TTRPGs is you are doing something that you can't do in real life, and whether that fantasy is a total different age, race, gender thing, whether that fantasy is getting a good night's sleep every night despite being on the move all the time.
Sleeping 8 hours?
Sleeping 8 hours straight with no problems. You know, whether that fantasy is killing goblins or befriending goblins, the point of D&D is that you are doing things that you can't do in real life. Rule of Cool is a huge part of that.
Part of Rule of Cool is the rules letting up on you as a DM, and part of it is the DM letting up on the players.
Yes. And you, as a DM, can use Rule of Cool whenever you feel it's appropriate, as long as you're not, like, dicking around on your players with it.
Your party, your group will thank you for it if you let them do something that feels cool. The worst thing you can say as a dungeon master is... No.
Just a flat-out no.
That's a controversial statement, because it makes it sound like you should never say no.
No.
And that's not what I'm going for.
No.
What I'm saying is... the difference between no and no but...
Yeah.
Is so important.
It's a massive, massive difference. You can say, no, this doesn't work, or you don't get this, but here's what you get instead, or here's what you get in addition to what you already had, or here's what you don't get in addition to that. You know, there's positive and negative consequences for failure both exist.
You know, for example, you open the drawer. No, this doesn't contain the key to the whatever room you're trying to get into.
Yeah.
But it does contain a journal.
Yeah. And it doesn't even have to be useful. It can literally be, no, this doesn't contain the key to the next room, but it contains a little carved figurine of a bear.
Yeah.
And, like, is that relevant right now? Maybe. Maybe not. You get to figure that out later. And you would be surprised how many times your players will be like, oh shit, it's a little carved wooden figurine of a bear. We have to solve this mystery now.
Yeah.
We have to figure out why this bear is here. We have to figure out what's up with it. And it's just there, but now you have to do something about it.
And I think one last thing I want to say about Rule of Cool is sometimes something happens that's so cool and so in character, good or bad.
Yes.
That you don't have to roll for it.
Yes.
The big one for me from a campaign I DM'd and a campaign where you cast for a player.
Yes.
Was we had someone playing, I'm just going to admit to this, playing Mollymock from Critical Role.
God. I love him so much.
And he was covered in death flags for a lot of the game.
As one might expect.
And there was a point in the game where he got shot, basically, by a sniper.
Yes.
And I did not have him roll death saves. He should have. He 100% should have had an opportunity to roll death saves.
Yes.
He didn't.
He didn't. It didn't happen.
It seemed as such a narratively appropriate death at the time.
And also, like, he'd been dodging the death flags for, like, 3 sessions straight, and everyone was tired.
I was cool with that, the player was cool with that, the party was cool with that, and it made for a much more dramatic scene than having him kind of frantically roll.
And see if he could get back up, which would have ruined the moment entirely.
Yes. Especially because it was a self-sacrifice.
Yes. And if you're gonna do that with a character, you know, everyone should be on board with it, but also, like, if your character willingly acknowledges, I am walking into death right now, I am doing this on purpose, I am intentionally letting myself die, you take away that player's agency by saying, roll death saves.
Yeah. Or even reduce your health or anything like that. Or, you know, you can have someone walk in to do a Halo Reach style final fight, and having them play out the combat of that is a little bit...
It's pointless. You know, if you know what's coming, and everyone knows what's coming, let it be dramatic instead of dragging it out and making it methodical and rules as written oriented. It's so much cooler that way. That was an incredible thing. That whole thing that happened in that game, that was insane. Everyone was losing their shit. It was awesome. Everyone was sad, because holy shit, this guy just died, and he was such an integral, like, emotion part of... He was the heart of the party, fundamentally. But it made for such a compelling story beat, and just this narrative breakdown, and it changed so much for so many characters. And that absolutely would not have worked the same way if there had been any chance at all of him getting back.
No.
You can use Rule of Cool for cool as shit emotional highs. You can also use it for crazy, impactful emotional lows.
Yeah, and there was an example of a high I had, but it slipped my mind. It was something
Goodbye.
you were dealing.
I don't remember what it was. I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll talk about it in a Game Tale. Hey, watch our Game Tales.
Yeah.
You're gonna talk about the Mollymock one someday. I do love him so much.
God, it's this week or next week?
Is it this week? I don't know. No, I think it's next week.
It's next week. This week is...
So subscribe. Subscribe to our channel so that you can see not just the video in this category for next week, but also you can see the Mollymock in my home game video. Yeah, it's really good.
Like this video, subscribe, check us out on Patreon. Special shout out to our patron.
Yes, Remy Sweet, my beloved person who subscribed to us on Patreon. You can be shouted out at some point in this video too, the next one.
If you want us to shout at you, if you want us to shout you out,
yeah, let me just go yell at you in your house for 5 minutes. No, if you want us to give you a shout out on the channel, in literally every video here on out, until that becomes tedious, and then we'll put it in the description.
Yeah, until the sun goes out.
Yep. And if you want that to happen, we will do it. Just pay us money on Patreon. That's all you gotta do. It starts at like $2. Just do it.
Yep, you can join our Discord and vote in polls, and
whenever we have polls. People in the Discord yet. But soon, we will. You can submit a bunch of stuff to us in there. You get cool perks. Join our Patreon. And subscribe to our channel. And subscribe to our other channels, because we have the Shorts channel and the Actual Play channel. The Actual Play videos are not going up this week, by the way. I'm going to make an announcement about it on the channel. For those of you who do bother to keep up with that. They're not going up this week because our real life is so insane right now. And we're super stressed. And something had to be cut. And I'm sorry.
Yep,
All 2 people watching our Actual Play videos.
We want to ensure that the finale of Curse of Strahd is...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we want... Because we are very, very rapidly approaching the finale of that arc, and we want it to be impactful, and if neither of us are in a great emotional place, that's not gonna...
If you want us to be in a better emotional place...
Give us money. Alright, I'm gonna stop harping on our self-promotion now.
We're the Harpers.
No, we're College of Lore.
Oh.
We're College of Lore. See you guys next time.
Thank you for watching this video from College of Lore. Remember to like this video, subscribe to join the party, and have a fantastic adventure.